Go.
Yep. Here we go. All right, sweet. So we are live.
Okay. So this is the one with the delay. That's fine.
Yeah. Just let me. We haven't dropped any frames, so we should be up. For some reason, the chat room is not there. Sweet.
I can see you. Okay.
Okay.
So we're not able to see our own stream, but we have got. So if you guys are watching right now, we have been fighting our way through about 50 minutes of technical difficulties right now because of our lovely Blue Yeti microphone.
Which is a bit red.
Which is our red Blue Yeti microphone.
Right. Only thing is you won't be able to type in chat.
Right. I can only watch as Natalie types in chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Natalie is you now.
Okay, so I'm not going to type in chat, but I am going to watch as the chat room goes by. Thank you guys, everybody, for sticking around. Thank you, Alex, for fighting through the technical support. Thank you. I really wish that this had worked a little better because we were trying to be on a schedule here. So if I can see there's maybe 5 people in the room, that's wonderful. I had a couple of people already hear the beginning of what we were going to talk about, but I'm going to pretend like that didn't happen and start again. So what I'm going to talk about today is first of all, introduce myself. I'm Evan Jones. I'm the owner of Stitch Media and one of the creators of this Terrorarium game. And I am here today to chat about the process of what we're going through right now, which is that we're hiring some new people. Okay, see, Natalie's helping out on the chat room as well. So, what's on our mind right now is that we have just been given news that we've got the green light for this new project, and it's a much bigger project than we had planned, this game. And so we're actually recruiting some new people. So if you are interested, we would recommend that you go to this URL. You ready to write it down? It's bit.ly/stitchjobs. And if you go there, you're going to see the current job postings. We have 2 of them up. The first one is for a Unity animator, and the second one is for a Unity developer. And so we are actively looking for people on a big, long contract that we're going to work with them. They're going to work out of our office here, and we're really excited. There's Adrian again, dropping in the URL. That's my man. And we wanted to talk today about what it's like on the other side of the fence when you're here getting the kinds of, getting the applications that are going on. So, one of the huge things that comes up is that we're trying to spread this news far and wide so that people can see all the different, we have as many people that could possibly be applying for it. And everyone's chattering in the background here. I'm going to ignore them. And so when we distribute these far and wide, one of the things that we've noticed is that there are a lot of websites out there that just have that kind of one-click application. And it really, really makes it hard to sort through the noise, to be honest, is that we get a lot of people who think, it's one click, and I think, honestly, there's a lot of people who are clicking through almost every job that's listed there because it just automatically sends a resume. And so the very first thing that we have is that we can't accept an application that's just a resume because it's just not the kind of job that we're hiring based on your paper credentials. I don't know how many people out there are actively job seeking, but a resume is a really, really tough way to stand out from the crowd. And I know that that's the formula for job applicants out there, but it's just, you have no idea the sheer volume of resumes that get that get put on our desk. And I mean, I am dealing with the day-to-day operations of the company and building the game, and at the same time we're trying to hire these new people and give them the time that they need. So as I'm doing the job applications, what I really do is I give people at most a minute, and I can't express enough how, you know, you cannot assume that people are reading your resume and judging based on the resume that you've submitted. The biggest help is to look at work specific to the role. And so for the Unity animator position, we've specifically said that what we want to see submitted is your demo reel of some of the animations that you've done. Some examples of animations. If they're game animations, we want to see a screen capture of the work that you've done. And it's really, really helpful if you actually describe which work you did, because there's sometimes where it's like, were you dealing with backgrounds, were you dealing with the characters, were you involved in the modeling, were you part of the rigging, you know, where were you in the phases of the production? A lot of teams have those roles split up. Here at Stitch, we're going to be hiring for one animator that's going to be taking over all of those roles. And so that's a pretty unique person out there that's going to be able to do all of those things at once. So we're looking for somebody who loves to jump into the life cycle and wants to have a lot of creativity throughout the phases of saying, you know, we can work from concept art right into the modeling through to the rigging. I'm learning lots of new terms in terms of animation, because we are not an animation studio. This is a big ask for us to do this hire. And so we are really looking for the final product that helps us to see that you're capable of the kind of quality animation that we're looking for. So what it comes down to is, I mean, I can't put it more bluntly than I would rather look at your demo reel than your resume. I actually don't want to look at your resume at all. I will look at your resume after I love your demo reel. And so I think anyone who wants to get into the animation field really needs to start working on the kinds of test animations that they can do. Think about the kinds of artwork you want to duplicate. Think about the variety of styles. One of the big things that I notice is that as we look at people's demo reels, they may have been working on one big project, and so they have a look that you associate with them instantly. Like I've just been reviewing some of the applications, and they are things like children's television shows. And so people who are animating children's television shows have a really distinct style sometimes, and it's beautiful in its own right, but it may not be what we're looking for in this project. And so as an animator, I think what you need to think about is the diversity of the types of projects that you're showcasing in your demo reel. If you have one big project that is your most professional work, you should label it as such. Like, put a title in there that says, you know, this is the biggest work that I've done to date. It shows the modeling work that I've done. Here's an example of one of the models. I'm screen capturing the actual animation software at that point. Here it is in its final animation form, and then segue and say, here are other projects that are less professionally developed but show the diversity of the art style that we're looking for. And I mean, it's really hard to tell because you don't know necessarily, but I think to just show the breadth of the work that you can do is a really important step. So I got my first question here. Natalie's piping in to talk about the aesthetic we're hoping to see. I mean, we really want Terrorarium to be a character-driven game, and that character-driven game means that we're looking for an animation style for, first of all, we're looking for character animation. We're less interested in getting people who are doing like the backdrop work. We want, you know, if you've got a whole demo reel that's full of vehicles or machinery, it's probably not where we need. We want to see some life in the characters that you're bringing forward. You know, we don't need to see very much of them. Some of the applications that we really love are just like, you know, a sort of entry animation that's like a creature appears and then it disappears. And that just gives us a sense of, you know, this thing, it's moving, it looks awesome. We are open to a lot of different styles right now, but what we're drifting towards at the moment is kind of a low poly version of something that we can really see the personality in. So one of the downsides of low poly in my experience has been that things can look a little bit anonymous in the way that you might sacrifice things like the eyes. You might not give as much facial detail, and I think if somebody can really find a way to breathe life into lower poly forms, then that's something that we're definitely looking for. I would appreciate anyone with experience in that realm to send me a quick demo reel to preview. The other thing that what we find is that, although I'd say that it's such a spectrum, is that there are some shops that are huge animation shops, and they have every single life stage of a project separated into different roles. I was just saying that we're collapsing the oh, hey, good. We're collapsing the job into one animator, which means that there's a lot of responsibility for the life cycle of one character. But there's a lot of people who, when they apply, are even going further. What they're applying with is they may have graduated from a digital media production program. Like, we're getting a lot of fresh applicants that are coming, and what tends to happen is that they have a lot of different experience in a lot of different fields. They've tried a bit of web design or development. They've tried a bit of Unity development. They tried a bit of Unity animation. They've tried a bit of front-end development. There's all these different roles that exist in a team, but what they end up doing is projecting an image of, like, I can do anything. Or really just give me the job because I'm ready to handle anything. And what it speaks to is that you come across inadvertently like you have shallow experience in all of the different fields. I mean, the reason that we're putting the Unity animator role up in the system is because we are only going to be expecting animation out of this person, and we want somebody who is passionate about animation. That's their one reason that they want to be working on this team, and not that they are choosing animation because it happens to be one of the things that they have some skills in. Now, I mean, maybe you are the kind of like jack of all trades that can do anything in the system, but they're rare. It's much safer bet for us to find somebody who is passionate about animation and wants to work exclusively in that field. And so I say this because it's easier to be putting together a resume or an application that covers a lot of bases, that you say, look, this is my sort of generic game studio application, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that to just hit every game studio that I can imagine, hoping that one of them will turn up a lead. That's one approach. I've never found that approach succeeds in my view. I think that you can do a lot better by kind of getting yourself a list of the kinds of studios that you wish you could work for one day, and to have a watch list set up to actually be watching their, collect a list of Twitter feeds, use things like watch that page, which tells you every time that a certain page might have an update to it. Set it so that if they have a job page that you're getting alerts that these things are happening, and also get to know a little bit about those companies, because I can't stress enough how much it impacts a new applicant if they actually submit an application that shows they've been tracking some of the work that Stitch Media has done, that they are interested in this proposal, and they might have put together an application that's custom for my company. It's a lot more effort on the application end, but the quality is just so obvious. You have no idea how many I mean, I'm expecting 300 applicants to the animation position, and sorting through generic versions of that is really, really difficult. So this is a fireside chat. I see that Adrian's got what he mentions is an unrelated question, uh, and so I wanted to see, what is Terrorarium? What are your goals with this title? So I'm happy to go into that. I am going to circle back around and talk about the Unity developer position that we have, and answer some more. Adrian, when you say that's quite a lot, do you mean that's quite a lot of effort to put into a job application? Or is there something else that you were meaning by that? While I'm waiting for your response, I am going to talk about Terrorarium and the goals that we have. So, Terrorarium is the latest game that we're building at Stitch Media. It is a game about wanton destruction and how much fun it can be to go out there and hunt for exotic alien creatures while we are having a bit of fun with some dark humor about all the things that are sort of dying all around us. So let me think about that again. We're working on our elevator pitch. The way Terrararium starts is that you are a gardener putting together your own terrarium, and it is filled with alien species that give you special abilities. And you want to capture more and more of these because you get more abilities the more you capture, and ultimately you're going to enter it into an intergalactic county fair and win the grand prize for having the world's best terrarium. Your terrarium is stocked with all of these different plant and animal life, and when you go out hunting for new alien creatures to add to your collection, you use a special type of alien called MYYY. And MYYY have this magical property that they procreate very fast. They're these little creatures that move around and swarm around you, and you can use them in all sorts of ways. And some of those ways involve you sort of building things out of the MYYY, and other ways involve you mowing down huge populations of MYYY and killing as many as you possibly need to in that situation, because MYYY are expendable. When they die, they multiply, and so they're nearly unlimited supply, and you need them to go out and collect these different creatures. And so it's really about figuring out ways to use your abilities to control the MYYY to capture new creatures. The goals that we really have with this title is to build a game that we really would love to play. Is I think the first thing on our list. That means that it's got to be something that we're going to be playtesting and loving, and that's a really, really hard thing to judge, and the only thing you can do is playtest it a lot. We think that there is an amazing kind of dark humor about trying to achieve your goal with innocent bystanders, and this MYYY are going to be such sacrificial lambs in the story that you're going to feel terrible seeing them die by the thousands, but you're also going to sort of love to watch the way that they are destroyed. And so we're trying to create this kind of chaotic scene where you're constantly changing and shaping this swarm of creatures so that they can go and overwhelm the goal, which is hunting this big game out there. Definitely iterative design. And oh yeah, see, Natalie's much better at explaining what I'm thinking. So she's put in there that MYYY are sort of like the sorcerer's apprentice meets an invasive species, and I think that's a great way to catch it. If you guys don't have any more questions about that, I'm gonna get back onto some of the hiring that we're doing. Oh, hang on. Oh, okay. So Braden just threw something in the mix. I mean, this is. I'm happy to have this be an open-ended conversation. Braden, the problem that we often get is that a lot of people bring a a lot of people have ideas. This is a challenging piece for us, and we do get approached by people who say, "I've got a pitch, and I want you to make it." And the problem that we have is that people don't realize what that question really means to us, which is, when people say that to us, what they're really saying is, I want you to give me a lot of money. And I don't mean that they're thinking like, I want to sell you my idea. What they really are saying is, isn't this such a great idea that you are going to devote a large amount of resources to make it happen? And the problem is that there's a big difference between people who bring us a concept, like they're pitching a new idea, versus people who are clients. Because it's very different if somebody says, I have a new game I want you to build, and I brought you $1 billion. Now, they never say that, but the point of it is that people who come with a budget in hand, and they say, I'm paying you to make this, here's my idea. Those conversations we have on a regular basis. In fact, that has been most of Stitch Media's legacy leading up to this point, has been clients who want something. Sometimes it's a game, more than often. When they come to us with a game like that, we're happy to build it. The trouble is when people come to us and they say, I have this game, you're going to love it, and build it. And what they don't realize is how much it costs us to even consider a new idea. And what I mean by that is, like, we easily are investing $10,000 to get a project to this point where it could start gaining, a budget. It could actually get a budget put together. And so if we want to even get a project to the point where we are ready to pitch it, so to say this is a game that we want to build, that is a $10,000 decision that I need to make. And so when we have people bringing new ideas to us, they may think like this is a great partnership, but they may not understand that what they're asking is for me to give them $10,000. And so when you phrase it like that, it changes the pitch, right? Because the pitch needs to be that much better than anything that we're working on internally, so that I say, not only is it worth us investing this amount of money, but it's also worth us bringing in an external partner who owns part of it and makes it a little more complicated than something that we've developed internally. And so, all to say, this is the reason why a lot of companies say, we don't accept pitches like that. It's really because, those concepts, as Adrian was saying, is that the value is coming from the execution, and and getting a project much further down the line makes it more valuable. And it took us quite a while to get to the point where Terrorarium is now valuable enough for us to be working on it so much. It's been actually at least 2 years to this point of us doing other projects and fitting moments in between of working on Terrorarium and ideas here. So we've invested quite a bit to get it to this point. I know that's hard to hear for a lot of people who have great ideas. It's just it's really tough to have those meetings where, honestly, I have those meetings where I think that I'm meeting a new client and I'm talking to somebody and they're saying, let's work together, and then it turns and it says, oh, like, you want to work with me, but you're bringing the idea and nothing else. And that's challenging, because I don't want people to feel like their ideas are not worth something. It's just, it changes the whole dynamic of the way that I need to approach that project, because I've flipped from being a service provider or a company that's that's got billable hours, and I've turned into an investor. And now I'm assessing your new concept as any investor in the world would. So, so you're mentioning, it's, I guess, speculative applications are something that, I mean, some companies say we won't even read them because they don't want to have the liability of that, of saying like, oh, you stole my idea. We don't really tend to get many of them, and it's because people kind of understand that we don't have a budget to invest in things like this. Spectacular is a tough word, because the thing that is really spectacular to us is a franchise that is so well known that we can see the audience is already there. Like, for example, we once upon a time had a project with the Trailer Park Boys, and the Trailer Park Boys were bringing us an idea that was their idea, but they had brought a spectacular amount of a fan base that they could already motivate to a project, and that was the value. The idea wasn't the piece where we were like, well, this project is the best project we've ever heard of. It was instead, look at how much they've already built to date in terms of the market for what they are offering, and that is a partnership that I can easily invest in because I know that they're equally invested in it. They've already done a lot of the hard work that I would have had to do of building an audience. So I'm going to keep going along. Braden's got questions. I'm happy to answer them. What he's saying here is like, it's not a pitch, but a job application. I mean, so this is actually how I got my job, and I'm happy to tell you the story of how I got where I am, because I think it will turn things on its ear. The story is really that I ended up entering the industry right at a time called the dot-com bust, and it was a time where all of the initial bubble of the internet, there were things like pets.com that were going to be the big new multi-billion dollar empires, and a lot of those companies just evaporated overnight in this dot-com bust that followed the boom of 2001 or so. And so all these fat internet agencies kind of went under all at once, and what it meant was it flooded the market with an incredibly qualified looking group of people, and many of them are very qualified. They're still out there, but point is that a new recruit like me had not a hope in hell of being able to get a job out there in the industry. There was just too much competition. Every application that was put in front of people was superior to mine because I had no experience. And so I don't know why this is, I feel so old. This was like a Seinfeld reference, basically, where I decided in a way that I was best served by doing the opposite of what I had been trying to do. I had spent an entire summer and I had sent out 20 personalized job applications to different companies every day for the entire summer. And so I you can do the math, 20 a day, 5 days a week, so we're up to 100 a week. I'm sure I gave out 800 job applications over that summer. And I think I got 4 interviews and I got no job offers. And I was like, screw it. This is the worst job market and I don't know what to do anymore. And I said, the thing I'm going to do for myself is I'm never going to give my resume out ever again. I'm never going to apply for a job, and I'm never going to submit a resume. I'm not even going to have a resume. And what that did was it shocked my system entirely to say, well, I still need to find a job and a career, but I'm not able to do it in any of the traditional ways of looking for jobs and applying for specific jobs. And what it instead made me do was start going out drinking a lot. And what I mean is that there were a lot of events that were going on. There were two parts, well, many parts. Here, stage one of the project was that I said, look, I'm not going to get a job, so I've got to make my own job. I'm going to start working on my own projects, and I'm going to go out into the world and talk about the projects that I'm working on. So during the day, I had a few jobs. In the afternoons, I would work, and I would work unpaid on my own projects. And what I was building was a pitch of like, I think I really was fascinated with alternate reality games at the time, and so I was really pitching this idea of like, I have these characters that believe that they are real people and that they interact with each other online through a lot of different ways that people can see, and it's about eavesdropping on these conversations that leads you to understand the story. So you can actually learn the story by following the trajectories of these characters, by checking in on their, well, this was before social, but checking in on their blogs and things like that. And so I was building a project that I really wanted to work on. And what it meant was that when I went out, and thank you, Adrian, for correcting me there, when I went out socializing, is that I went to targeted events. I made a list of all the times where industry events were happening, and most of them were public, things like HTML5 meetups, the IGDA meetups that were happening. They were always happening in the evenings, and I was always just going to them, and people would say, what are you doing? And what I should have said, if I was 100% honest, was I'm a total starving recent grad, and I have sent out 800 job applications. And so all of these have failed, and now I'm here, and I have no prospects. But that wasn't a great story. And so instead of saying that, what I've talked about with people was I said, well, I'm working on this alternate reality game. I'm working on this project. I think it's pretty cool. Here's some of the ideas. And they say, like, oh, who are you working for? And I would say, just doing it on my own for now and seeing where it takes me. And it gave us something to talk about that wasn't a power dynamic that was set up right away, where it was like, do you have a job? Do you have a job? I just was saying, this is what I'm doing. I'm interested to hear what you're doing. We're peers, even though you get paid, I don't get paid. But now we can talk. And after that event, I would go home and I would take notes. And I would write down notes about all the conversations that I had. I tried to look up the people that I'd met and see where they were working, and keep references of what these things, what have I learned about the industry, and what I was saying earlier was, I was creating a kind of landscape of who is in the industry that I like, and who would I love to work for one day, and what are they doing, what's going on in their space, and then also what kind of conversations have I had with this person in the past. And what started to develop was that I started to find friendships in the industry, and I also started to make the connections. And what it eventually happened was that in the short term, I started to get invited to more and more exclusive events that were happening, to the point where I was now starting to go to things that industry people were at. I was friends with them. We had just spent the last month seeing each other at different things, and so I'll get invited to this cool invitation only thing. Well, suddenly now you're vetted and you're in there, and it's different. The conversations are happening at a different level. But the whole time I was still talking about this project that I was working on, and I mean, it was coming together. So I was legitimately doing it, and I was intending to launch it, but I had a conversation once I got to one of those events that was a very exclusive event, and I sat down next to somebody, and I said, what are you working on? And they told me, and I said, oh, that's really cool. Here, here's what I'm doing. And they heard that and said, this is so perfect for us right now. you could not have told me a better story right now. And what we have is that there is a project that we're working on, but we don't have a concept yet. We've been asked to give a pitch, and we think that your concept right now is our pitch. And so what we're going to do is you are going to come into the boardroom in 2 days, and you are going to pitch everything that you just told us, which was the alternate reality game that I had been developing in my bedroom. And if they go for it, you are going to build it. And we stripped out all the character names. We put in all the character names of the people in their project, and I completely repositioned it and said, okay, well, yeah, this is our pitch. And they were like, wow, this is incredibly developed. And I was like, well, I've been thinking about it for a while. But what it meant was that I got a job as a creative director in a company that I had only just learned about a few days ago, and it was about building relationships in an industry that showed I was a part of it, as opposed to just on the outside looking in. And so what I mean by that brings me around to what Braden was asking about, was that we're not always posting jobs, but we're always aware of who is out there doing really cool stuff. Like, part of our work at Stitch Media is to keep track of amazing things in the industry, and we are tracking that just for professional interest, because we're fans, because we need to know what our competitors are doing, and then that project. And so we're always on the lookout for things that are happening that are really cool. And so we never ever are worried about people that are reaching out to us to say, here's something that I've been working on, what do you think, or that kind of stuff. I mean, it's a relationship that you're building with a company that knows what you are, what you're interested in. And the example that I give is that by working on something that you're really passionate about to create that entry point, like if you're the animator that we're going to be hiring very soon, you're trying some animation projects. All the practicing that you're doing to become an animator is your portfolio. And when you share that with people and they're impressed with it, then you get labeled out there in the industry as like, this is a talented animator. And I think that sticks with people. It's like when we're hiring, I mean, one of the things that we're doing is we're saying, okay, we know that we need a Unity animator. Who do we know who's strong in this already? And I can tell you that before we put the job application even on the market, I actually contacted 2 people that I have known because I love the work that they do. And I contacted them to say, are you looking? Are you busy right now? We want to talk to you. We think we've got an awesome project to collaborate on. We've been threatening to collaborate together for a long time, and I really hope that you can join us for this. Unfortunately, both of them are busy doing awesome projects of their own, and so now we're putting out the message that we're looking. But what it means is that, I mean, coming back to my own personal story, I mean, Adrian made a note that it sounds like a dream come true. It definitely was a dream coming true, but it was a dream coming true about 7 months of hard work. It was 7 months of being in the right place all the time, having honed my message of what I was working on so that it was exactly what I wanted to be doing, so that when other people heard my story, they knew where to put me in the categories of what you could hire. When people said, like, oh, I'm interested in doing something like this. Oh, you got to talk to this guy, Evan, that we met. He's got this crazy project he's doing that's similar to yours, and you should hear what he's doing. That's the kind of accidents waiting to happen, is that I spent a long time having a copious amount of notes about the things the places that I needed to be, the people that I needed to talk to, the project that I was working on being at its best so that it would present well, and all of those coincidences all came together to create the path that I was on now. And partially it was because I realized that most jobs in this very creative field are filled because of the reputations of the people that you work with, and the people that you meet that are doing amazing things. People make a note and they say, I want to work with that person one day. And so that, for me, Braden, would be an amazing way to think about not just saying, like, for instance, we get people, right now we put out an animator job and we put out a developer job. And I can tell you that this is exactly what happened. The day we posted those jobs, we got a writer that sent us an application, said, I want to be your writer. Now, that's great, but the timing's not perfect. I mean, I know that you want to be a writer right now, but we're not hiring for a writer, and that's not really the relationship that I want to have with you. I want to see your writing. I want, like, every time that you are writing something you're really proud of, send it my way. Say, like, what do you think of this? Those are the kinds of things that put you in a longer term job cycle. And I can see that that Natalie is in the chat room right now talking about her own experience with Stitch Media, which is that Natalie and I spoke many times before there was a job on the table, or there was the right combination of projects that put that job on the table. And so it was really because I thought that her work on Winona Earp that she had done was fantastic. Other people had made a point of saying you should really meet this person, and those kinds of, they say it's who you know. It's definitely what you know, because I'm definitely going to look at your animation reel and I'm definitely going to ask questions about your abilities. But the who you know part is also very important. And it's important because it's so much easier for me to hire somebody who is already a part of a community and has shown that they are good at what they do through trusted sources. Now, the thing is that who you know isn't just like your friends and family. You can actually go and change who you know, and it's all about the way that you are jumping into a conversation without thinking about the short-term outcomes. Is that, I know that you need that job this week. I get it, and I still remember that visceral feeling. But it's like you've got to circle around it. Is that you're not going to get this head on. You're gonna get it when you've spent some time giving to the relationship as much as you're taking from the relationship. And so you can, if anyone wants to chat with Natalie, she's in there in the chat room as well. I want to talk maybe about just looking at the time. We're almost up to an hour here, 45 minutes or so. I'm going to talk a little bit about the developer role that we have and the types of things that we're looking for in that role. Development is a tricky thing because I have watched so many different technologies come and go, and what I've learned is that it's the really strong developers who are actually effortlessly moving from one to the other. Is that Unity is right now the hot ticket, and all of the game studios are hiring for Unity development specifically. I mean, 8 years ago it was Flash development. Everyone was talking about Flash, and so today Flash developers, they don't get as much work. There's not a lot going on, and the trend line moves all around. So those kinds of tools is not really where we want to see it. It's more like look at the technical challenges that you have been presented with and look at the ways that you've overcome them. Because I think that the best applicants for developers that we see, they usually submit their code. They're usually straight up like, here's my GitHub. I am not interested in the resume. I mean, the resume says, developer here, and maybe I'll recognize some of those names, but I mean, what I need to see is what kind of problems have you solved through the technology that you've created, the code you've built. And so what best applications I see are the ones that break it down like case studies almost, and they submit and say, this was a project that I did, and these are the unique challenges that project had, and these are the ways that I solved them, and here is a link to the code base that references the solution that I came up with. That is my dream applicant, is look at a functionality that didn't exist before and might be something that you haven't seen usually. I mean, the reason for that is because there are so many kind of out-of-the-box code bases now for things that sometimes when people present to us like a very generic type of game, there's a temptation to say, did you actually borrow an out-of-the-box code base for this, or was this a unique build? Whereas the stranger things, the kinds of functions where you're like, whoa, I've never seen like a game that uses so much gravity and messes with the physics engine. This is a really unique take on this. That kind of stuff speaks to us and says, okay, this person is coding things that other people are not thinking about. Like they're able to do stuff that we think is, they've seen a challenge that doesn't exist in current examples. They're not just finding it out there in a sample. They're actually thinking about it from like, how can I build something that you haven't seen before? So I mean, this is the ideal. The ideal is that they present a problem like that. Like I wanted to see if I could get this crazy real-time masking working. And then they say, and then here I got it working. Here's a working example, and here's a reference to the code base. And if we open up that code after looking at that, you go to the top of the pile. This is the people who send that, automatically they're in the top 10% because they didn't just click that button that submitted a resume and nothing else. And then if they've actually shown some pieces like that, some examples, suddenly they've got our attention. This is someone who knows what they're doing and has built in Unity that way. So I would encourage anyone out there who's sort of thinking about it, or even on a path of saying like, I know I want to be a game developer one day, I would say try to look at the times where you've solved a problem that might be original, and try to document it. Try to really capture it so that two things. So that non-technical people can appreciate that you achieved something that other people didn't do. And then the second is document it in a way that the code is clean. It shows that you've packaged it up and it's readable by a third party. And I'm drooling at the idea of having a submission like that. If one of you can apply with that, that would be perfect. That's what we're looking for today. And so I hope I've handed it over to say, show me an animation reel that has a diversity of styles and outlines the roles that you played, and show me in the developer side problems that you've solved through code and the code that solved them. And those are better than any resume. So I mean, I'm going to probably wrap up because I've been rambling for about 50 minutes. If nobody else has any questions, I think that maybe gives you a sense of a little bit behind the curtain on the way that we are hiring coming up. Also, some weird career advice of my own trajectory. And I see that we do have one question. The final question is obviously, do you have any QA openings? The answer is an emphatic no, and the reason is because we've got the best QA team in the country. They've already pretty much, tested everything that we've ever done, and it's always been bomb-proof. So we're really proud of the team. They're downstairs eavesdropping right now. Although we might be able to hire anyone who could troubleshoot like microphone support. If anyone could do a little bit of setup. I know that we had a few minutes of technical difficulties. I want to thank everybody for their patience, but setting up a Twitch stream is something that we could work on in improving our skill set. I'm going to leave it with you, and and now that I've done that, I am going to sign off. I mean, I love being able to talk with you guys. I really hope that this has been helpful and useful for you guys. We're going to keep doing these fireside chats, and one of the things that we need is suggestions for what we should talk about. So if there's something that you really want to hear, you should send it to us. Probably Twitter's the best way. I mean, we'll take some notes here, but this is the kind of stuff that we want to do, is helping to share with the rest of you and answering any questions, and obviously just rambling on for an hour or so. Thanks again, everyone. I'm going to sign off. It's off, I think. I think I want to stop recording too.